Hello, everyone, and welcome to Behind the Camera House's Designing Across Worlds production and costume design for the screen and stage panel. So, I am Daisy Friedman, and I am a writer director based in New York City. My work often centers the intersections of tradition and intimacy, embodiment, and disability. And my most recent short, Unholy, was selected for the Sundance Film Festival as well as South by Southwest this year, and we'll be touring around the festival circuit this summer. So this panel will explore the art of world building for the stage and screen through costume and production design. From initial concept to final execution, this conversation will dive into how visual storytelling help shape narrative, character, and emotion. All right. So without further ado, let's introduce our panelists. If each of you could give a little wave when I introduce you, just so we know who we
Yeah.
all are. Amazing. Okay, so he is a theater designer behind the recent and upcoming theater productions, including Memnon, Pericles, and Metaxas, Ryu Rakkulchon. Amazing. And he is the production designer on Amazon's Wheel of Time, Ondrej Nekvasil.
Hello.
Great. Amazing. So let's get started. And this is for both of you. So both of you work on very different, very unique projects. And before we dive in, would you both mind giving me a very brief synopsis of the project or projects you're working on, just to give the viewers some context sort of before we jump in? So let's start with Ryu.
Yes, a few that you've mentioned so far. So Memnon is a new play, actually, produced by Classical Theatre Harlem, of a Ethiopian warrior during the Trojan Wars, which his story has never been told, right? We saw the movie, we saw Brad Pitt. This is not that. However, in the same timeline. The other one is Pericles, which is actually this time round going to be performed. This is through the public theater being performed at St. John of the Divine, reimagined as a gospel choir piece. And then Mexodus is a loop musical. It's looping, as in when you record a sound and then you put it on loop to create an entire musical by only two performers who does everything. And it is a story about the underground railroad that led south to Mexico.
That is amazing. All right. What about you, Andre?
No, actually, I was working for last 5 years on the TV show called The Wheel of Time, which was produced by the Amazon and Sony, and it is streaming on the Amazon Prime at the moment. We all together shoot like 24 episodes of that. Like each episode is 1 hour long, so all together is like a 24 hours of the story, and the whole thing is based on the series of books by Robert Jordan. Robert Jordan was an American writer who wrote that as a kind of fantasy books in the early 90s. And originally he wrote like a 6 books. After that, he had like another 6 books, and unfortunately, he was not able to finish it because he passed away quite early. And there was another writer who finished another 2 books for it. So altogether, it's a 13 books, and it's like each book has 600 pages, and the whole thing is like the universe of the Wheel of Time is like a parallel universe. There's a world which is like working not only with the future but also with the past, because what we are saying, there's a wheel of time which is like always turning. So actually what happened in the past will come again in the future. So it's like a like a you couldn't like get rid of the past, because the past is also maybe your future, like that kind of like a vision is there. And there is a it's like if you imagine that world like a story wise, like imagine like a 16th century Europe, 16th century, without any shotguns, that they don't have like a black powder and the shotguns, but they are like they do have a magical power which is called one power, which is something what the specific group of women are able to keep. And this group of women is called Aes Sedai, and they are able to work with that one power. and what is the storytelling and what is the key point. Like if there's a man who has that manpower, he can actually use it for the good, but more often he's like using it for the bad things, like so he can destroy the world because the manpower is so powerful, and only these women are able to kind of keep it in in their hands like properly and not use it just for themselves. So there's always like that kind of like a dark side of the human society and the light side of the human society. That's kind of like that fight. And that fight is not just black and white. There are not like only good people, only bad people. They are really like a mixing, and some people are really turning into the bad. And it's kind of interesting storyline. And there's a lot of stories, a lot of words, and a lot of places which we are visiting through the journey. So that's about that. And as you said, like we shot like a 24 episodes, meaning like a 24 hours of that.
Great. That's
Yeah.
wonderful. All right. So we're going to go into the individual questions now. So we'll go back to Ryu. You've worked on so many amazing projects recently. So how do you adapt these designs to kind of suit this historical context, like you were speaking of, with that historical weight, but with modern Renaissance, especially in these very deeply community driven and like civically minded spaces and communities?
At the end of the day, what we are in service to is the script, right? What we're in service to is the story. So every single process is actually very different. I don't treat anyone differently, like if I'm working on commercial or something that is more civic driven, because at the end of the day, we're just presenting the story. And I think that the best way to do so is actually have to really think about what is accessible, right? So to me, that's my philosophy on that.
Amazing. Okay, very cool. Is there any specific project or instance like you kind of like with the St. John the Divine, like reimagined it in a way that you weren't expecting the design to be when you originally got the script?
Yes, I mean, it's you find inspiration everywhere, right? And the good thing about living in New York City really is that just walk out your door, there's a museum, there's so many things to see that could spark anything at all. So I don't think that I have anything particular in terms of having to adapt, but I think like I feel very lucky to be around folks who always gives me wonderful insight to certain things that I don't think I've had before.
Great. Awesome. As a fellow New Yorker, yes, absolutely. Can attest. Um, okay, Andre. So in this fantasy world, like Wheel of Time, and you sort of talked about this a little bit, but how do you strike a balance between this kind of larger than life, otherworldly design and visual believability within the context of the story?
So in general, what we were trying, I mean, not only me, but all our team, was the create the world which is on one side like a spectacular and grand, but on the other hand, as you mentioned, like a believable, that you can believe that these people are real people. They have like they are normal humans. They are not like they do have that superpower, but they are not like a superhumans. Like like some of them they have that one power, but they are not like a superhumans that they are able to, I don't know, like do the magic or something like that, because the manpower one power is like a how to say, like a ability to make the storm or to make the rain or something like that, but it's not like a creating I don't know, rose from the tree or something like that. You couldn't like change the stuff. You can really work with the powers which are around us, and you can concentrate them into the one point. So we can do like a storm. You can do, you can move the ground and all of that. But it's only about that, not about changing the substance. And but back to the question. So what was our idea, that actually that we will try to do these big giant interiors and exteriors and all together with the interiors which are private, and in these private interiors and places we would like to see, okay, somebody is living there, somebody is staying there. So this has to be the stuff which you usually have in your bedroom. You have like a some bed, you have some place to wash yourself, some place to cook, some place to eat. And like at the eating and all of that stuff, and fasting and all of that is part of our life. And it's also kind of described in the books of Robert Jordan that even on the journey, they're not like a magically moving, and they are really traveling. They are traveling on the horses, by walk, by ships, different versions, but they still there's still the physicality of that word. So we kind of create the word not create the word, but we call it like a grounded. So even like in that big word, you still have like a feeling, okay, these people are living there, and it's possible to stay in that place, and it's not just a kind of upscale grant, but you also have these bedrooms, and the people are living there, and they are not so they are like human beings, and that's how we were trying to, bring the audience closer to our heroes and make them believe that that's actually what we are looking for, and that's what we want uh, to bring the people closer to the story and feel like, okay, we can be part of that world. That was the idea behind that.
Great.
So technically, I really be focused on the human details, human things, and not dress for example, if you imagine somebody's interiors, not dress it as okay, make it cool or make it this, but let's make it in a way that you can believe that somebody is living there, somebody is cooking there and eating there, and all of that stuff has to be there because that's his place, so. And this is, of course, together with the design, which is not usual. That's the kind of things which we were trying to achieve there.
Yeah. At the end of the day, people are people, no matter what their
Yeah,
environment.
yeah, exactly.
Awesome. All right, throwing it back to you, Ryu. So you've collaborated with a wide range of directors and design mentors. So can you share a specific piece of advice that stuck with you or influenced sort of how you've led your own projects now?
You know, no one knows everything, right? And give people grace is the only advice I have because every single design process is very different according to who you have in your creative team, right? There are times when I would be designing with just the director for such a long time and then folding in everybody else after we've created a space. But there are times when everybody in the room constantly are always together because we were able to, right? Technology has changed that quite a bit because we can be on Zoom. Despite saying that, really scheduling people is actually still really terrifying, a feat in itself. But yeah, just know that give people grace. Not everybody knows everything, and the best idea always will win.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Very succinct. Okay. Ondrej, what's a specific design decision in season 3 of the show that audiences might not consciously notice, but you're very excited about, whether it be because of its craft or sort of symbolism within the world of the show?
So there are two sets or two places which we described or try to show in the third season, and that is of course more places, but the two kind of key ones for us. Our heroes are visiting place which is it's called Isle Waste, and it's really like a place in the middle of nowhere, like a desertish place with no water, really just like a gravel and dust and a few trees and few bushes, nothing specific. And it's very hard to imagine that somebody lived there. But there are some tribes living on that, like like a Tuaregs on the desert, like really people are living in the desert. And there were two specific places which were built there, which we built for there. One is the specific settlement, which is called Cold Rocks Hold, which is a place that people are living in the middle of the desert, and they are able to survive that because the configuration of the rocks create the shade above that place. So they do have a little bit better environment because imagine that outside is like a 50 degrees or Celsius, and it's really very, very hot outside, which is like 100 or I don't know, 100 Fahrenheit or something like that. So it's really absolutely crazy to be there. And that Cold Dogs Hold is a settlement which kind of allowed people to live there. So when we start thinking about that, the place, we were, thinking like of the places like, I don't know, place called Cappadocia in Turkey, that the people live and build underground spaces and underground cities, almost like at the buildings and everything is kind of dig underground. And that was like the first thing when we started, like a thinking, okay, they dig all that stuff. And after that, during the scout in South Africa, we found like an amazing place, really in the border with Namibia, where you have a desert, and in the middle of the desert, you have like a huge boulders, like a massive boulder. So it looked like a seabed almost, the desert. And there is like these massive boulders, and they create some kind of very strange formations. And what we decide, like seeing that place, that instead of like them like carving these places from that, that somehow that settlement is built from these big boulders. Like that they are kind of putting like these big boulders on the top of each other. Like the kids which are building some castle from the rocks or something like that. And in between these rocks, there are these places that they live, and there's a place where they are having some crop and having some vegetables, so they can live there and they can survive there, and they are catching the water as well, and all of that. It's actually one place. So that was really one moment when we said, okay, let's do the environment, which looked very unusual and very specific, and will be very hard to create it because at the end of the day, we have to believe that actually something like that exists, and it doesn't look like a too crazy or too stylized or like that. That was the one, and the second one was like an ancient city which was in the middle of the desert, and it was very tricky for us because, as per the story, that city is completely covered by the fog, and there's a fog all the time, and it's very hard to like to hold the fog if you are outside. So what we have to do that we have to combine the exteriors and interiors, because the places with the fog has to be inside the stage, that we have to create like a really like that kind of heavy fog atmosphere and keep it, because inside the stage you can do it. So we rented like a large stage, and we like had a light gray background and the fog everywhere, and the sound and sand on the ground, and some rocks and some statues, and this kind of help us to create really um, kind of content in interior within the exterior of that city. And after we jumped to the desert and we shot the exterior scene, so it was kind of combination of these two things, which are it's always very tricky, like visually and production wise and conceptually, because you are shooting one thing on the stage, which is in Prague, and the second thing in the desert, which is in the South Africa, and you have to be sure that actually these things are matching together, and it has a kind of like the environment that you believe that it's one place, that you are not jumping from the place to another.
Yeah, for sure. Consistency in world
Yeah,
building. Super,
yeah.
super. Yeah. Okay. Amazing. So Ryu, again, as someone who is super passionate about sustainability, how do you translate into intentional and actionable design choices without maybe compromising any kind of artistic intent along the way?
Yeah, I mean, I think we should rephrase the idea that you are compromising in any way, shape, or form, right? Design at the end of the day is you are compromising with your ideas always, right? But the importance here about the sustainability is that there's a sector of people sustainability versus material sustainability, right? Materials is so easy because, for example, you should already know as a designer what materials are available in the world. Like a piece of plywood is usually comes in a 4x8 sheet, right? So when you're designing, do you really have to have a piece of scenery that is a 4 feet 3 inches? It can be still 4 feet, and that would be fine. Are we thinking about when I'm doing costume design, can we say that at least 80% of the design will be a pool or a rental as opposed to a rebuild, right? There's so much waste consistently when we are even buying things, right? Fast fashion is kind of horrible for the world. Personally, too, this is a more personal sense that whenever someone says that all the outfits I have looks really cute, I would always tell them the cute ones actually are thrifted, right? It's, we can reduce, reuse, and recycle. The harder part really is the sustainability for people. Yeah, because I believe in 2016 there was like for me, environmental justice is actually also racial justice. I believe in 2016 there's more than 90% of air polluted relation deaths occur in like low and middle income countries, right? So for example, in the United States, I believe there was a study, I need to pull it out from, forget where it's from, but in the United States, Black Americans have 54% higher health burden compared to overall population, right? So thinking about where waste goes to and where we generate our waste actually is somewhat impactful in all shapes and form. Therefore, for me, it's already embedded within my brain to try to not do that. Um, think big and start small, really. We can definitely still have the same large design by starting small.
Great, great. All right, Andre, so you were literally just talking about this, so it's perfect. How do you keep a massive global production in two continents aligned under one creative vision while empowering all of the local designers and crews that you employ on the set?
So generally, like the production design is is the profession that you have to be really sure that you are not, I'd say, afraid to hire people which could be better in their profession than you are in your profession. Like so, it's something like I should say, like the conductor of the orchestra. The conductor of the orchestra has to know exactly what each instrument in the orchestra has to do. But on the other hand, he's not as a good, I don't know, violinist as the violinist there, or cellist, or like a flutist or whatever. Okay, so I do know the professions. I do know how they work together, and I think that I believe that I can find the right people for the and put them into the team. But I'm not afraid that these people are, for example, the graphic designer is better graphic designer than I am. Okay, I'm just doing the basic stuff, and this guy is really great doing his stuff. So I'm supporting that. So technically, I'm giving a lot of freedom in the way of like, okay, that's your thing. Let's work with you. But on the other hand, let's follow this idea and my always my conversation with all of them is always the first one like are you open to follow this my ideas for that because in one point I'm the guy who will tell you it will be dark or light, it will be black and white, it will be like it will go to the left or to the right because that's kind of my position. But on the other hand, I will not kind of tell you that you couldn't do it this way because that's the way which I don't like personally because I prefer the other way. Like so, I'm giving them the freedom in a way how I feel like they can improve the quality of the whole show. And but also I'm like I insist from the beginning. Okay, guys, you have to agree that you will go for that and you will follow these ideas. Like some because sometimes it's a really big team, but it's not team like that everybody is assistant. It's a team that like that you have a really creative people, and these people could be designers on other shows next year. So it's really to find a way how to talk with them and how to communicate with them, and also find a way who is best in what kind of sense, like who is best to do this design, who's best for that, and actually kind of divide them into the places. And after that, I'm giving them like, okay, that's your field, that's the part of your design, and it will be focused on that. And of course, they are working on it very intensely. And I'm giving them the freedom that they don't have to kind of be scared about some other stuff which is going on somewhere else because then somebody else is like dealing that. So it's instead of like the whole team jumping from the place to place, I have a team divided into the groups that are really focused on the specific looks, specific designs, and all of that. And I'm kind of like I'm the one who's like always like a moving between them. And for me, it's always like to be in in touch. So we are like sharing the designs, sharing all the informations, and having like a conversations daily, or at least if it's at big distance, like every second day, that we can say, okay, this is the right way to do. This is the like, let's do this way, and kind of be focused on that. And they do know that they accepted their position in a way that they will work for the show, and they will be open to if I will say, okay, I don't like this because it's too over design or it's too much there, and let's make it simple. They will go back and they will make that thing simpler. So it's that's kind of like that communication. I think that whole there's a lot of things about the communication and about the collaborators and the understanding, okay, how these people are able to work together and how they are able uh, what they are able to bring to the show and to the like to the look of the show. And that's the crucial thing for me. Like I always find out the like the best each people, like what they are the best, and use it properly. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. As a director, I think the best kind of sets like yield the best results are always the most collaborative. So
Yeah.
awesome. Awesome. I totally agree. Okay, Ryu, can you describe a specific piece, whether fabric or furniture or prop, that ended up carrying sort of an unexpected emotional weight in any of your recent productions?
I don't think there's, I treat everyone as if it was everyone, huh? I treat every production as if it's my baby. But the thing that I actually do often is I put a bird's nest hidden somewhere, everywhere in a set. Even though it's the most bare bone looking something ever, there will always be a bird's nest there. So.
That's so cool. Why that?
It started off with just the idea of what's left behind, right? What's left behind versus the that idea of like nurturing. So, for example, sometimes when I set dress, it's like, will this person have ever watered their plants? And then there'll be a dead pot of plant over there kind of a situation. So for me, a bird's nest is like we are part of the environment, right? It's more than just us. There's other, mammals out there. There's other things that we should care about. And that's why a bird's nest seems to encompass all of that.
Yeah, that's so sweet. Oh my goodness, I love that. Okay. Andre, so we've kind of been talking about it, but you and your team have designed literal entire cultural aesthetics from scratch in this show, which is wonderful. So how do you avoid cliches or stereotypes, especially when you're going to other places, while still pulling from those real world inspirations?
So I truly believe in the in the researches and self-education of the everybody, like that as an artist you are starting with something, and instead of like only going into your knowledge, you still have to do the research, as Ryu mentioned, like you have to go to the museum, you have to see something, like I'm always buying like a lot of books, like art books and the visual books and the textures and the photographs. And after that, we are doing like these big walls of the researches, like that. That's what I like always. It's not just a kind of like a visual things, but are we putting together all the interesting shapes, and we said, okay, let's explore what is the culture in this area of the world, and let explore how they deal with the furniture, how they deal with the like a set dressing, or like I mean like a dressing of the room and all of that. And we are putting all these things together. And so I believe really it's about not going just to the basic solution, but really start looking for the best and choices, and looking and deep and digging into the history and try finding something better, And I think that's really because sometimes you can really just like Google it and you have some pattern, and sometimes you can say, okay, it's nice, but what about if we will go deeper and we will find something more if I said like an example, like okay, let's say Arabic pattern, and like these, you have like that octagon and you have like these stars, and but there's a more of it. Like there's a lot more, and you have to go and you have to go deeper because these are the ones which are on the souvenirs and on the every single picture from Morocco or from like from the Arabic world. But if you go deeper and you will go to the deeper to the Arabic culture, you realize that that's only the part of it because there's a much more in it, and that's the way how you are trying to always build that word deeper, and that's kind of like a focus on that I'm trying to do. All the people like people responsible for the sets, people responsible for the all the set dressing, and the same is the props. That they are always like trying to go and try to find deeper and more, I think, thoughtful researches which will help us to create like a new look of it. So like that. I am the one who really believes in the really prep with the researches and prep with the educate yourself about some cultures. And in here, what we did, like that, we kind of invented our cultures, but not like inventing them from scratch, like just sitting in a empty room. But we put together inspirations. We always like selected inspirations, selecting the colors, the type, how the colors are imply on the things, like if it's paint or if it's kind of some kind of burnt details into the wood, or for example, there's a lot of things which are really inspiring in the human culture, and I think it's really about like a not don't stop exploring and looking that. And it's at the beginning we are starting as explorers, as you mentioned, like go to the museum, look around yourself, go to the street and not be stuck only as a script, and you will do it like by yourself. No, it's always about that. Like start looking for that and look around yourself and finding the inspiration even from the small details, and even in the details which are not even closer to your intention, but maybe somehow it will be inspiring at the end for the project. And that's I think that's really like a non-stopping exploring is the thing which is really important for the disposition and this work. Okay, but otherwise you are just like a kind of doing repeating yourself or repeating somebody else's designs.
Absolutely. Consistently being curious and questioning and looking at the world around you. I think that's great. Okay, so now we're going to open it back up to questions for both of you, but we'll do the same order. So I'll go back to Ryu. So when you're building these fictional or hyper stylized worlds, where do you like to start? And I got excited about this question. Like as for me in my process, I always like to start with the script. It's something I feel most comfortable with, especially the dialogue. So like, where's that kind of like safe and exciting place to start in your designs?
So I always say this like the first place to start is read the play.
So true.
That's the first 100%. Read it about 3 times is where we should all start because you always will miss something. Certainly, you might misinterpret like characters' intentions between to one another. But after that, what I really actually start with is the space. I contend so much with the space of, great, if I want equitability for everybody, do I would really assess all the seats that are in the theater to see where each person actually will be looking at, what would they be looking at, and start there for me, so that in that way we're both serving the play, but also serving the audience that comes sees the play. So yeah, that's where I start.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Do you have any specific instance where like you read a play and then you thought it was something and then you reread it and then it was like totally different?
100%, 100%. I see a lot of movement while I read a play for some magical reason, but then again, I undiagnosed ADHD perhaps, but my brain always goes to somewhere else, right? So after the second read, I'm like, great, what is this actual story? So it really hones me in a bit more. It's always great to have that initial instinct, of course, to be like, oh, it could be this and this. However, we again contending with the story, right? There is a beginning, middle, end often, and there is an arc we have to reach, and there's something within design that can help elevate that arc, and that's all what we're doing. And sometimes there are days when the design was too much and is no longer serving the play. So what's the point of doing the play if you're not serving it?
Yeah, cool. Awesome. All right, Andre, what about you?
So in general, I can 100% sign everything what you just said about the script and about the play or text at the beginning, because it's really starting with the word and starting with the text, and it's really there. Regarding the Wheel of Time was very specific about that we had like a script and we had a book, and we always could do like that, like because of course, we always read both, like with our key members of the team. But of course, we can find some inspirations in the books, and we can go back to the play or to the script. And of course, there was a lot of differences because that's like that, series is a slightly different beast than the book, because in the book you can really be on the 20 pages in one room, and it could be the smallest room in the place, and that could be like an amazing dialogue. But if you are on the, if you wanna visualize that, it's kind of boring at some point, like that, or you have places that you are walking through like a pitch black, and pitch black is not the most inspiring place for the TV or film, because the pitch black is like it's like a podcast immediately. So it's really like you are trying to find a spot like how to kind of deal with that. And in so many ways that we found some inspiration in the books, and we brought them back to the scripts, and okay, so that was one thing. And as for example, specifically for this show, what was the quite important for our way of the designing was that I knew from the beginning, from the very first call with the showrunner, that like the cast will be completely multi-ethnic, and we had like a really cast from every single continent you can imagine, like which around us, like from the New Zealand to UK, like and we have a European guys and we have American guys all together in one place. And what was important for us, that because that wheel of our world was turning so many times, that actually they created the nations and people living in the different eras, different places in that world. But the ethnicity is not the question, because they live in some place, but the ethnicity of the place is not even like the story is not about that. The really what is the question, like who is who, and like how important is that guy, like for the the society and for the improving the society, and how bad is the guy, but doesn't matter what is the ethnicity of it. Which means that in some way that we designed the thing, we didn't like a focused on okay, we will design that in the Arabic style because this cast is like Arabic and we will go like this way. No, it was really like there's an inspiration that in this culture they don't like there's a kind of geometric shape, and they don't like to visualize people, and we will go like a really in this way. But like that Arabic culture, as I mentioned, is just the inspiration, and it's not the description of the ethnicity of the people. So that was like the kind of thing that we said, okay, in our world, the ethnicity is not the question at all, because this is the world which was like a turning few times, and in the small village in the middle of the mountains, you have completely various ethnics, and nobody cares about it, and nobody questioned that, because that's what happened, like once the world is turning few times. So, and that was really another inspiration for us when we designed that specific story, because that was really different than usual brief you have from the either showrunner or director.
That's awesome. Okay. Another question for both of you. What made you get into this? This is a really interesting, sort of unique career. Why this opposed to any other artistic career?
So it actually came from a very dark place that turned brighter, which is wonderful. I moved schools during middle school and was bullied a lot for being really, really, openly queer. And I found drama club. Drama club then eventually turned into like, great, do be an actor, do stuff in middle school and high school. And up until high school, I was invited to start designing. Well, I went to international school. My drama teacher didn't know how to speak Thai. So he asked if I could translate to the carpenters what he wanted built. And then after then, it became like a thing where he asked me to do masks for a Greek play. Then it was then a costumes for another production, et cetera, et cetera. So at the end, I was designing set and costumes while playing Sky Masterson in Guys and Dolls in senior year of high school. And, from then on, fell in love really with the fact that what am I going to wear? What is the environment, as opposed to being an actor in a play, right? So it was a calling in that sense, and I've done it ever since.
Awesome. And I think with that, I'll do a little piggybacking question first. What advice do you have to young designers?
Advice, oh my goodness. It's not advice, but I think a mentality, right? It's just like, just please be curious. That's the best thing you can be. Just be curious. Again, like I said before, no one knows everything. Even my mentors have rediscovered things as they grow through their career. So just be curious.
Great. Andre, both questions to you as well. Why and then advice.
So regarding the first question, I had like a much simpler path because my father was a theater director and opera director, and I kind of grew up in the theater. So as you mentioned, like that you were like, okay, fully because they are queer people, unusual. Like if you are growing up in a theater and the society around the theater in the small town, you know about these people because somehow this is kind of like a safe place, because somehow theater is the safe place for like a people that they are not like a really fitting into the society and the rules of the society, mostly on the small town. So that was one thing, and I was really like liking that. And I, from the very early age, I was sure that I don't want to be on stage. I want to be behind the stage. And after that, I decided to study architecture. So sometimes I want to be architect. I finished the architecture and I studied the theater design. And I work as in a theaters and like a school theaters and like I did some designs. And I met some people from the film school and I started doing the film with them. And somehow happened that I after like a first 10 years, I moved my direction closer to the film. And even I like theater still, and I time to time working for some theaters is not like my major focus, and I kind of turned the focus. So I started like the architect who is doing stage design, and I moved to the production design and working for that. So there was much more like this way. So, but I should say that I had like much thanks to my father. I was much, kind of. I didn't have like a dark way to get there, like as you mentioned, like it was like a really more like a smooth way to get into that society and to that way. And like regarding the second question, and I'm because I'm the second one, it looks that I'm repeating what Rio said, but I'm really 100% saying what he's saying about the like that to be curious and like trying to do the stuff. It's really and for me, it's the same as I mentioned about these references. I'm still looking for the stuff, still like educate yourself, because quite often happen that the students who are coming and in a school, they know some, because every young people has some kind of few ideas, really bright ideas, and he or she is using them a lot, like okay, that's my new idea, but these ideas are there for like 10 years. But after that, if you wanna move forward with with the quality of your work, you have to like improve yourself and go forward, and still trying to find the best of yourself and best of your design. So you have to kind of like educate yourself. I'm not like it doesn't have to be school, but you have to kind of understand that you are not done because you did like a really big show or you did like a successful show or you have a Tony Awards or whatever. It's not there. It's like a really just like this is just a path, and we are walking on that path, and that's then enjoying that. But yeah, that was kind of like at that moment. Then I decide when I decide to work on that I really like the collaboration. I really like seeing the places which I will never be able to see if I'm working as an architect, and I will be in some like an office all the day and designing, like a new stuff only. Because I'm not designing the new stuff, I'm designing the old stuff. I'm visiting the old houses which are abandoned, empty, and kind of rusty and lost. And suddenly, I'm trying to bring the life into it, or I'm going to the quarry and I'm trying to, change that quarry into something else and something special, and not looking at that as a only okay, it's an industrial quarry. What it's not for me. It's always like some kind of inspiration. What could be there? How this could work for the story. So it's I should say like that be curious and educate yourself all the time because you have to really keep it. Otherwise, like that your designs will be empty after 20, 15 years and you will just repeat yourself. You have to really kind of move forward and really reflect what's going on around you and understand that.
For sure. Yeah, that's great. Okay. So success is something that's so subjective, especially in the arts, especially in trying to move towards a creative goal. So how do you define successful world building in both of your work? And when do you know you've sort of like arrived at this like proper visual language that you're trying to achieve for a given project?
I think it's always very scary, actually. For example, with Exodus, right? I didn't really know how a looping musical was going to work out. There is a story there still, right? The journey, it's a journey, and the moment when we realize it works was actually during technical rehearsal, when things are actually coming together. It's not as if we're going in blind, right? Because we do have ideas of what this could be, but sometimes it's the collaboration of every single designer and also our director and the collaboration of playwright and actors as well. I mean, that's why we do this work, right? We like collaborating. We like the community of it all. The community aspect really helps. Again, sometimes your ideas might be great, but it can be enhanced by so many other people. And as long as you are serving the moment to moment of the piece and you're creating a journey of the piece, I think that's all you could do. And so I think that successful is, again, very subjective, of course, but successful is when the entire team actually do have the same language.
I agree completely. Yeah, that's really when you know you've gotten it. All right, Andre?
Yeah, so it's very similar. It's really like that you are, for me, it's always like as was mentioned a few times now, it's about the teamwork and if the team is actually doing the right thing and you kind of feel it that is there. One thing which is very specific about the, film and this stuff is that actually uh, because in a theater, actor is actually there during the rehearsal, and he kind of like is being in the space here. He's actually able to, or he and she is able to explore the space and understand the concept and the visual concepts like piece by piece. In the movie, it's more like that actually actor is brought into the place, and suddenly he is there or she's there. Okay, it's like a really you know step out from the car, going to the dressing room, changing the costume. They usually know what is the costume for the scene, but they don't know anything about the set where they are stepping in. And for me, it's also like a very important. If they told me, yes, really feel very well in that set. It's really like this is what I imagine to be in, and I really like I felt the energy of that place and the like the quality of the set for that scene. And that's how like the actors are coming back to me and it's like that was really right place for us to be and or like the best way, like we didn't feel that we are in the set, we feel that we are really in that palace, like not even like a knowing that the palace is like a built on the back lot somewhere or on the parking lot somewhere. Once they have that kind of feeling, because they are really, the good actors are really able to concentrate within like a few seconds, and they can like really have that empathy to the space and to the characters and the place where they are, and they are able to express themselves like, very quickly, like, and they don't need the time to absorb the stuff, because they are really, that's the quality of the good actor. And once I'm getting these kind of like a feedback from them, okay, I really enjoy being that, because it's really exactly what I imagine. And they know that it's a set, and it's really like it was built from the scratch, and it's a plaster, not a stone. It's really something that we say, okay, we are doing the right job, because they do have that feeling, and we can just believe that, okay, they will deliver a better job, because they feel like, that show or that set is better, and it's kind of showing exactly what we want to say in the story.
Great. Awesome. I have one final question. It's super quick. It's very fun. What character's costume or set that you've designed in your whole career would you secretly love to wear or live in any project that you've created?
Um, I mean, for my design for the mousetrap, it's a manor, it's a cabin, it's really cozy. I actually pretty much redid my living room to look similar to that design, for sure. But for as a costume designer, if there was a robe of sorts or an outfit that was going to go on stage, trust me that I've already worn it before the actor.
That's awesome. Is there one specifically where you're like, actually, after we're done, I will be stealing that?
Uh, I stole it already, so but I can't say which one.
Good for you, though. Very, very proud. Okay, Andre, what about you?
I don't know. I don't know. Okay, if there's a specific thing which I should say, like, that I would love to live in. That is, I think that I really have the um, don't have that kind of connection that I will say this is exactly what I want to be, or no, I'm not sure about that. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't have like a simple answer that's like, that's exactly the set I want to be. I want to stay there. It's more like that. The places which I enjoy, like, designing, and like, having that feeling, and that it has nothing to do with the fact if I want to stay there or live there. Like, it's more like that. Uh, like that. When we did a, uh feature film called Snowpiercer with Korean director John Ho Bong. Like, I don't know. He did a Parasite. That was kind of his famous movie. And before The Parasite, he was doing that show or that film called Snowpiercer. It was also a TV series, but that was before the TV series. There was a feature film, like in 2011 or something like that, or maybe later. And there was a specific set, which was the engine of that, like the big train, which was like the called Snowpiercer. And there was a lot of details, hidden details, which I really like, and I really enjoyed designing and being there. And I really had like a really very personal attention to that. It was like a kind of, final set of that, almost final set of that story. And I really enjoy every single detail on that set, because there was a much more behind every single kind of detail you can see. There's a lot of stories behind that, and that was something what I really like, that always the set has some kind of like a secret, and also like a kind of like a depth, which if somebody wanna find it, they will find it. If not, doesn't matter for me, because I really enjoyed it. So like that set was like that set was like as Ryu was saying, like there was that set was like a full of the bird nests. There was like a bird nest all around. And that's what I like about that. If I don't want to live it in, no, okay, because it was crazy. But I really enjoy design.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So that is actually it. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you both so much for you and Andre for being here and discussing your amazing work. So excited to see it. And thank you to Behind the Camera House and Impact PR. It's been such a pleasure, and we hope the viewers enjoy this wonderful panel. Thank you guys.